Welcome to Political Empire. I'm Duane Gang. Thanks for watching. We have a good show for you today. We're going to discuss the latest field poll numbers on same-sex marriage in California. And then later in the show, we're going to talk to Ben Goat, our Washington correspondent, about a congressional race in San Bernardino County, a new person in that race. There's term limit push in Temecula. We'll talk about that. And then later in the show, we'll talk a little bit about this push by inland officials to try to gain control of Ontario International Airport. But first, we're joined by Jim Miller, our Sacramento correspondent. Jim, thanks for being here.
Good afternoon.
All right, so let's take this field poll out on Wednesday about the same-sex marriage. Let's take a look at some of these numbers here. 59% of respondents in this latest February field poll now approve of same-sex marriage in California. That's opposed to 34% who disapprove. Now, going back, that's the highest number, I believe, since the field poll has been asking this question, all the way back to 1977. So, Jim, what are people saying about these numbers?
Right. It's the highest number since the field began tracking this in 77, and it's a 25-point gap between people who oppose it and people who approve of extending marriage rights to gays and lesbians. And as we know, this is playing out in the courts right now, but what that margin suggests that if this issue ever did end up on the ballot again, that supporters of marriage rights for same-sex couples, the outcome might be different.
Yeah, let's remind viewers a little bit about some of the background on this. In 2008, I believe, voters in California approved Prop 8, which was a ban on same-sex marriage, and then it's gotten tangled up in the courts. And most recently, the Federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals weighed in on it. So this could be a fight for years to come in California, don't you think?
Correct. Right. And Proposition 8 in November 2008 passed with about 52% of the vote. And in talking to some supporters of same-sex marriage rights yesterday, they were a little cautious about the numbers that field had. If you recall, before Prop 8, polls showed people generally were supportive of extending marriage rights to same-sex couples, not by 59%, but more than the majority, and yet Proposition 8 still passed. And in addition, some groups' own polling shows less support, although still a majority of extending marriage rights to gays and lesbians. So there was maybe a little cautiousness about what field came up with, although most people you talk to agree that the trend is moving. That the trend's moving that direction.
Right. Well, this will definitely be an issue to watch going forward in California. Not only in California, actually, but in other states around the country this election year, where it's also going to be on the ballot. But it is definitely interesting to look at those numbers. As you could see earlier on that chart, it's pretty much a complete swing since 1977. In 1977, 59% of the respondents in the field poll disapproved, and now we're complete opposite with 59% approving of same-sex marriage here in California. So it's definitely going to be an interesting issue to see how it all plays out. Jim, on the phone from Sacramento, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk about these latest field poll numbers with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and we'll be right back, and when we come back, we'll talk to Ben Goat, our Washington correspondent, about the 8th Congressional District race and a new entrant into that contest. We'll be right back.
We are your breaking news leader. When news happens, stay up to date with expanded coverage in the Press Enterprise delivered to your home. Follow the story throughout the day on PE.com. Receive news updates in your inbox or on your mobile device. That is how we keep you connected to your community. The Press Enterprise and PE.com. For home delivery, call 1-800-794-NEWS.
Welcome back to Political Empire. I'm Duane Gang of the Press Enterprise and PE.com. We're joined on the phone now by Ben Goat, our Washington correspondent. We're going to talk about the 8th Congressional District race. That's a pretty big district encompassing much of San Bernardino County's high desert. Ben, thanks for being here.
Great to be with you, Duane.
So who's the new candidate in this race?
As you mentioned, Duane, the 8th Congressional District is a huge district. It goes all the way from around Yucaipa up through the San Bernardino Mountains, across the high desert, and even into Mono and Inyo counties. The latest candidate to jump in the race is Anthony Adams, who is a former assemblyman from San Bernardino County, from Hesperia, and he joins several other candidates from around this massive district. You have Paul Cook, an assemblyman currently. He's got San Bernardino County Supervisor Brad Mitzelfeld and some others, Victorville Mayor Ryan McEachran, and some other elected officials from the high desert.
Now, Adams is a Republican. Is he running as a Republican in this race?
Well, he was a Republican. He served 2 terms as a Republican when he was in the Assembly, and he came under some serious criticism from within his own party in 2009 when he voted for a budget that temporarily raised taxes. He even faced a recall effort over that. Now, he survived the recall effort, but he did not seek a 3rd term. Now he's reemerging. He's running for Congress without any party affiliation at all.
How does he think that's gonna play out, running as an independent in this district?
Well, I spoke with Mr. Adams this afternoon. He's betting that a lot of voters have enough, or have had enough, with the partisanship in Congress, and that there's enough centrists and moderates out there that will embrace his decision to sort of disassociate himself from all of that. We actually have a clip of him talking about that.
It is my hope that I can build a coalition of pragmatic Democrats, decline to states, Republicans, independents, and the people who just are fed up with hyper-partisanship. And I believe that there is a sufficient number of people who are just tired of watching people go to war with each other and not accomplish anything, that my candidacy will have a legitimate chance of succeeding.
Now, Ben, you mentioned that recall effort. Did he talk about that any? Does he think that will be something that he's going to have to overcome, that people remember and maybe not want to consider him for Congress?
Well, he says he welcomes any discussion of it. He said he stands by the 2009 vote. He thinks most of the criticism over it came from people who were on the far right conservative wing of the party. And, the district is very solidly Republican, and Adams is hoping to get a significant number of the moderate Republicans, but also a significant number of voters, more than 18% in the district, are independent or declined to state voters, and he's hoping to do well there, too.
Like all of our congressional races this year, with newly drawn districts and as well as the top 2 primary system, this one is also going to be one of those ones that we're going to want to pay attention to closely. So, Ben, thanks for giving us an update on all the latest in this race.
Thanks for having me.
And when we come back, we'll talk to Jeff Horstman about an effort to push for term limits in the city of Temecula. We'll be right back.
We cover the issues you care about. Here at the Press Enterprise and PE.com, local news matters whether you live along Route 66 or on Main Street. We provide regional analysis and in-depth investigation of issues like education, transportation, the environment, and much more. Important matters are covered here. That is how we keep you connected to your community. The Press Enterprise and PE.com. For home delivery, call 1-800-794-NEWS.
Welcome back to Political Empire. We're joined now by our Temecula reporter, Jeff Horstman, and we're here to talk about something that's not the Liberty Quarry. We're going to talk a little bit about Temecula politics. And there's a term limits push in the city of Temecula. What's going on with that?
Well, what it is since last fall, a group of volunteers has been going door to door and at supermarkets gathering signatures to get term limits for the city council on this November's ballot. And how it will essentially work is, if you're on the council, you could serve 2 consecutive 4-year terms, then you'd have to sit out 4 years before you ran again. And the chief organizer of this has been a woman by the name of Patrice Lines. She ran for council in 2010 on a kind of Tea Party influence platform, and her rationale, she says, for wanting term limits is she thinks there needs to be fresh ideas and fresh voices on the city council, and she sees it as in particular a way to limit the size of government and city spending. If you have some new voices on there, that's going to lead to more limited government.
Well, is there some truth to what she's having to say? Are the members of the Temecula City Council long-serving members?
Well, there tends to be, traditionally over the 20-year history of Temecula, very little turnover on the council. I think I read somewhere that only 13 people have ever served on the council, and the combined experience of the council members is more than 60 years. Now, the council members say, hey, our experience, our knowledge has helped the city become what it is, having huge reserves, having a high quality of life, and if you have term limits, you're going to take good leaders out and replace them with political novices, and that's going to have negative consequences.
Well, term limits, of course, we have them in the Assembly and the State Senate here in California. And of course, one of the criticisms of term limits are those that say by having very short amounts of time that elected officials can serve, that puts more of the influence in the lobbyists and the special interests and those experts who kind of know their way around city government. And I know it's going to be an issue in the 1st District Board of Supervisors race in Riverside County. One of the candidates there, Mike Subero, he's pushing a 2-term limit proposal as part of his platform. Of course, he's running against incumbent Supervisor Bob Buster, who's the longest serving member of the current Board of Supervisors, been on since the early 1990s, as well as Assemblyman Kevin Jeffries. So not only in Temecula is it going to be an issue, but it could become an issue in Riverside County as well. So is it actually going to be on the ballot? Will Temecula voters get a chance to vote on this?
Well, that remains to be seen. What happened is the group has delivered what they say are enough signatures to get it on the ballot, and the city clerk has taken possession of those petitions, has turned them over to the registrar. Registrars ultimately has 30 days to count them and determine that there are enough valid signatures. And if that's the case, then it's actually going to go back to the Temecula City Council first. The Temecula City Council is going to have the option of either enacting this without putting it on the ballot, or they can just say, you know what, we're going to let the voters decide it's going to be on this November's ballot. And judging by some conversations I've had with Temecula Council members, I think they're leaning toward letting the voters decide this one.
So we could know by the end of March whether voters in Temecula will get a chance to weigh in on this.
Conceivably.
Right. All right. Well, Jeff, appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat about something that was not the Liberty Corps today, some Temecula politics and that push for term limits there. Appreciate it, Jeff. And when we were going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk to Riverside City Hall reporter Alicia Robinson about some efforts underway to kind of gain some local control of Ontario International Airport. A lot of our local cities are starting to weigh in on that issue. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We are your breaking news leader. News happens. Stay up to date with expanded coverage in the press enterprise delivered to your home. Follow the story throughout the day on PE.com. Receive news updates in your inbox or on your mobile device. That is how we keep you connected to your community. The press enterprise and PE.com. For home delivery, call 1-800-794-NEWS.
Welcome back to Political Empire. We're going to talk now about Ontario International Airport and efforts to gain local control of that facility. Of course, Ontario is actually owned by the City of Los Angeles and run by Los Angeles World Airports, which also runs at LAX. But ridership and passengers at Ontario International Airport have really fallen in the last few years. So a lot of local officials feel that Los Angeles isn't putting enough attention onto the airport to try to build and grow it. The Riverside County Board of Supervisors just this week also weighed in with a resolution in support of local control of the airport. And the City of Riverside is also actively involved in trying to help Ontario gain control of the airport. So we're joined now by our City Hall reporter, Alicia Robinson, to talk about what's going on. So what's the latest in the city's efforts to help Ontario out in gaining control of the airport?
Well, Riverside Mayor Ron Loveridge has really taken up this issue. Today, he and some elected officials from other inland cities, including Corona, Moreno Valley, and Jurupa Valley, traveled to Los Angeles and spent the morning meeting with Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa and about half a dozen members of the LA City Council.
So what was the message that they wanted to deliver today to the City of LA?
Well, I talked to Loveridge as they were heading back, and he said the meetings went well. They don't have any guarantees, of course, but they really just wanted to make the point that local control of Ontario Airport is truly a regional issue that other inland cities have an interest in.
Yeah, it's a regional issue. I mean, a lot of people initially think, okay, Ontario, it's in the city of Ontario, it's in San Bernardino County, and a lot of local governments there have already weighed in on this issue. But now we're seeing that not only are they weighing in, but Riverside County cities are weighing in. Of course, the county weighed in. They said, look, great, Supervisor John Benoit yesterday said, great percentage of passengers or residents in Riverside County go and use Ontario International Airport. And so they would be better served with more flight options and things like that. So who else in the city or in the county of Riverside, what other cities are deciding, hey, this is something that we need to jump in on as well?
Well, so far we have actually probably about a dozen cities, mostly in western Riverside County, which is the more populous part of the county, have passed resolutions in support of local control of Ontario. The city of Riverside, as you mentioned, also Temecula, Norco, Paris, Eastvale, and a number of other cities.
Right. Well, this is definitely, I know it's whether or not they're going to be successful or not going up against Los Angeles in this fight is to be determined, but it's certainly an important regional issue that a lot of local officials and local economists and business leaders say, a viable Ontario airport is good for the region. So that's definitely going to be one to watch as well. So Alicia, thank you for joining us today. And that concludes this edition of Political Empire. As always, pick up a copy of the Press Enterprise for the latest political news or go on pe.com for the latest. And we'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.